T.A.G. Tag, very nice, very evil.
Yeah, that's tag shit.
Free fall as I die through the kaleidoscope in my mind. No rope up to climb. Gotta remind myself that I'm fine. Mama, I don't really.
What is happening? Now, of course, you see that this is all solo dolo. You don't see me and my compatriots all together like we normally are when we run these reviews and recaps, but they're busy. So I decided to go ahead and run this NXT recap and review myself. Now, normally we would do it probably the day after or the night of, but seeing as how NXT did kind of roll around very quickly, it's probably our fault because we waited to record this shit. But either way, we decided to go ahead and do a recap of one deadline, as well as check out the aftermath on NXT TV. Now, normally, like I said, we don't really normally do the NXT stuff unless it is of significance, normally like Stand and Deliver or something like that. But we're going to start doing more because they have been ramping up in what they're doing. I love what they're doing with the women's division. And I think it's important that we do kind of cover this stuff because usually around this time, they end up rolling out a lot of people being moved up to the main roster. And I think it's important that we do get back to check in their come up like we used to do, because a lot of you that have watched us knows that, you know, we all love NXT Black and Gold. Now, Scoot religiously was on 2.0. He religiously watches it now and he handles that. But I think as a collective, we need to start doing that more to pay more attention to what's going on, especially with the amount of talent that's been rolling in to NXT as of late. But yeah, I think it opened my eyes, especially with Deadline. Deadline did give me a refresher / reminder as to what was being missed when we did watch Black and Gold. It's starting to get back to that, at least the feel of it. There are certain things that's going on that is a bit cheesy, for lack of a better term, but I think that there are a lot of pockets of good that are coming out of it once they start to revamp a few things. And I think with the move to CW, I believe that it's going to do a lot of beneficial positives for NXT as a whole, because I think once you have that basic television network TV stuff going on, where you have a lot more eyes that can actually just tune into it, as a passing glance, you start to get more of the necessary things being put on TV or being highlighted more than a lot of the, hey, let's go ahead and just throw something out there and see what sticks type of thing. So and hopefully for the better, because I mean, we have seen where, let's go ahead and put what's working for the people on TV and then pushing that ad nauseum. So we'll see where things kind of land after about a few months of NXT being on CW. But first and foremost, we do have to kind of jump into Deadline, and I'm going to do this thing where I jump into Deadline and talk about the matches, but I'm also going to, along with that, talk about the aftermath of said thing with NXT within NXT TV. So we're going to, instead of us doing the full Deadline review, we're going to break it up along the way, so that way it's not, we're not breaking up everything and making it seem like, oh yeah, not important. Anyway, so first up, we had the men's Iron Survivor match. Now, first thing I do want to state is that I do, and I don't know if I said this or somebody else said this before, but I love this concept, and I'm glad that this concept has not been put or implemented into the main roster the same way that War Games has been, because I think that if you did put this concept of a match into the main roster, it would be used in a way, the way that War Games is being used continuously every year, just for the sake of it being used. But I do like this for both the men and the women. So with the men's, kind of it started off paint by the numbers with Javon Evans and Wesley. It did seem a little slow in the beginning, and I think that was by design. I think because they wanted to save their tanks, because they both can go, but it definitely seemed noticeably slow, and I think that's where I kind of had the problem. But I'm bringing this up not to go over the whole match, but to really just highlight what transpired after this, because my pick to win this was Wesley. I think it made the most sense. I think it was more or less the obvious pick, to be perfectly honest. And even when we did our predictions on it, we all pretty much picked Wesley to win. Well, aside from Yeager picked Javon Evans. I can see why he did that, but it wouldn't have been my call. But yeah, I think that with Wesley turning heel, I think this was kind of the direction he needed to go, because I've touted him for so long, even when he was with MSK, when they had that little split, and when he got the North American Championship, and he still by far, in my opinion, still is the greatest North American champion of all time at this point. I think it would have been a natural transition to go up to the NXT Championship, and for him to either contend for it or to potentially win it, which I believe that he will at some point if they do it right. But it made sense to put him in that picture right now. Him being a heel with good old Trick Willie being a face, and having that be a feud that can be pushed. Now, I of course wouldn't expect him to win, this soon, but I would think that it would be something where it would either be a multi-man match, or if they, did the feud and pushed it nicely up until Stand and Deliver, that could be the way that you would go. But, they didn't pull the trigger. They decided to go with Obafemi. Cool. I think with the whole Javon Evans and Wesley feud that they have pushing right now, or continuing rather, I think it's a good way to go for Javon Evans. I don't know how well it is for Wesley to go this way, because I think he needs to be in something significant. Because before, I was the person that thought that he would be the perfect person to dethrone Obafemi, with his heel turn, to basically take the title off of Obafemi after he lost as a face. I figured that if he had that edge and decided to, cut corners to beat Obafemi, it would make sense. But, they didn't go that route, and that's fine. That's fine. I do think that Obafemi is not going to go over on good old Trick Willie, because I don't see it. I do think that Eddie Thorne is going to play a part in that, judging by what we saw on NXT last night. Because for one, it doesn't seem like Trick is going to lose yet. I just don't see. I don't know who's going to take it off of him, but I don't see him losing that title just yet. And I also don't see Obafemi winning the NXT Championship just yet. I personally believe that Trick does need to go up to the main roster. It's not the fact that he's not good. It's just that him being NXT champion isn't doing it for me. For me, he seems to be somebody where I would slot him where a Jey Uso is, where he seems to be, just that fan favorite. He's up there and he's perfect for the mid card. That's not to say that he wouldn't be at some point good for, the world title picture. I just think as a character and for where he's at right now, it would be a perfect slot for him to be a good utility player right now on the main roster, just based on the overall package, and there's one thing with that too, especially when it comes to, and I noticed it last night, NXT, both the show in some aspects and some people with promos, there is a huge pacing issue. I saw it when Trick did his promo, and he in that whole segment between him, Oba, and Eddie Thorne, and I also noticed it heavily in the opening segment with the whole Julia celebration. There's a lot of it, and I get, of course, it is development, but at the same time, even when you think about Black and Gold, and I know the comparison, I've made it plenty of times between Black and Gold 2.0 and even now, it's Black and Gold. Yeah, we knew it was development, but it never felt like development when it came to the in-ring stuff and the performers. For the most part, I think 90% of it never felt like development. The only thing that made it seem like development was the overall aesthetic of the arena. That was the only thing. Everything else pretty much seemed like a secondary show to WWE, and that was it. So I miss that feeling. I think that's one thing that kind of takes me away from certain, or takes me out of things when I do watch it, is that those small things. But that's also why I do believe that Trick would be better slotted in a mid-card title picture, because I think him being on the main roster around a lot of veterans would help him more than him being the NXT champion around a bunch of other developmental talent. Because I think because of the charisma that he has and the grab that he has on the audience, I think it would be better suited for him to be on the main roster, so that way he could in turn learn from the veterans, build up those certain skills that he's lacking, because he's only lacking a few in-ring things and then a few stuff on his promos, but everything else I do not mind. So I mean, I would have taken the title off of him at some point. I think when Ethan Page won and they had that feud, I think it would have been better to have kept the title on Ethan Page for a good bit versus kind of hot potato in the title back to Trick like that, because I think it would have helped him on the chase to do a lot better for him along the way. But this is what we got and this is where we are, so no problem. But I think moving forward, if they're gonna pull this stuff with Trick, I think they need to make sure that they set him up with a better dance partner, in a sense. I think Oba right now would be the starting point, because Oba was fine on the segment. I think he worked out perfectly, because his promo skills aren't bad. I think when he finally gets into it, he's cool, but he's definitely not taking that title. I can tell you that right now. He's absolutely not taking that title. Now, the whole Eddie Thorne thing, I'm not really going to touch on too much, because I think he's got his own stuff going on, and I think he'll find his way into whatever he needs to. There's nothing really to highlight too much on that, because I do think it's probably going to end up being a feud between him and Oba after the match with Trick and Oba for the NXT Championship, which is why I think that Trick is going to win because of shenanigans. But the other thing to touch on, since we were talking about Ethan Page, is the Ethan Page thing. Ethan Page needs to go to the main roster. Simple as that. I think right now that what he's doing is probably going to be his last storyline for NXT. Matter of fact, I'll say this, because this is the possibilities, because I mean, I could be wrong, but the possibilities from least to the highest potential of happening would be, one, he stays and he eventually gets the NXT title back, and he stays there and continues to reign from that point. Second, he goes through this whole thing with the whole North American Championship, where he lost last night after being offered a chance to compete for the NXT North American Championship. I think, after all of him talking about, how it's not worth going after, something that's beneath the NXT Championship, that he'll finally win that, and then that'll be his whole thing for the time being, even probably up to Stand and Deliver or even after. But the highest percentage of something happening, in my opinion, is he'll probably go through this whole losing streak. He'll continue to lose, and then he'll eventually just say peace out and escape to the main roster, whether it be sometime around Mania or even during the draft. But I think that it's time to go ahead and just straight to the main roster, because Ethan Page is one of those talents that is just necessary for that. Same thing with Trick. He needs to be around veterans. He needs to be around his peers and just be tested the same way that LA Knight went from NXT to the main roster. It just worked out better for him. He was already, talking perfectly fine when he was in NXT. And then once he got to the main roster, after the whole Maximum Male Models BS, and he was able to stand on his own and just do his own thing, it worked out perfectly for him. And you see the results of that. But Nathan Frazier and Axiom, I'm coupling those two because I think with these two, they made me a believer. When they first won the title, I mean, I didn't care too much for Axiom when he first jumped on the scene. It didn't matter to me. The stuff with Nathan Frazier, he was kind of just there as well, but I didn't care either way. But Axiom was one that I was like, why? But they turned it around during this whole tag team picture scene. Once they paired the two together, and it didn't work initially. And then it started to work after a while. And then now that, I've been able to see the story unfold, see where they're going with this, and see how everything kind of culminated to kind of where we are now. One, they both can go. There is there is no doubting that. They both can go. And most people would have believed that this would have been the time to go ahead and just pull the trigger, take the titles off of them, and call it a day. But now that I can see where that storyline is going, and I can see, what the potential plans are, it absolutely didn't make sense for them to lose, and which is why I picked them to win, even with the whole, the typical, the very typical thing of, putting one of them in a match prior to, their actual tag match, and then having them expend their energy, get hurt, whatever, and then basically give them an excuse to be able to drop the titles. But two things: one, the story definitely didn't call for them to lose, and then two, no quarter catch crew, Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights. They have the look, they can go in the ring, it's their presence that, for me, it just doesn't seem like it is time for them to have anybody's titles yet. I don't know what they plan on doing, or I can kind of see what they plan on doing with them having a pseudo feud with OTM. I can kind of see them doing that for now. But as far as them winning the titles, no, not at all. The match was fantastic. I enjoyed that match. I think every match on this card was very much enjoyable. But the Trick Williams and Rich Holland match, which is why I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that, if any. But yeah, the tag match was fantastic. I think being able to see how Nathan Frazier performed in the men's Iron Survivor, and then to watch him and Axiom perform in the tag match, where Axiom did take, the brunt of everything as far as being in the ring and getting most of his stuff off. I think it was a perfect dynamic between the two to see both of them and basically give Axiom a reason to basically spend most of the time in the ring, and not to completely disregard Nathan Frazier, because he actually did go in this match too. It showed a lot of his resilience within this match. I mean, be it storyline or not, it was something to be able to watch both of these two and be able to see them show what they'll be able to do once they get the whole revamping of the roster like they usually do, in Mania season. Because what happens, you get a lot of people that go up, and then you get a reset of the standings in the roster. You see this person goes up to the world title picture, or this person gets pushed to the mid card, this person goes here, this person goes there, and you start to see who we're going to be looking at as far as the faces of the company, for the foreseeable future, whether it be a few months, whether it be for that year, whether it be for a couple years. But either way, you're able to kind of survey the landscape and see where things are going from that point. So yeah, completely not surprising with the result of the tag match and what is meant to happen. But good on no quarter catch crew. Say that shit 5 times fast. Good on them. I think they did fantastic. They looked fantastic. There's something that's off, and I don't know if it's just with the whole stable as a whole, because Ren Sinclair has that weird thing too. So and look, correct me if I'm wrong, or feel free to explain to me in the comment section what I'm not seeing. But yeah, it something just seems off. But I digress. Lola Vice and Jada Parker with the underground match. I mean, I don't care too much for the underground stipulation. It reminds me too much of the whole Shane McMahon WWE underground thing, because I feel like it is a byproduct of that. But I understand why they did it. Now, for reference, I did pick Jada Parker to win, but I picked her to win because I felt like it was going to be something that made sense for her to do so, whether it be, like with the brick, and bringing that into the whole thing and finding a way to basically beat Lola Vice at her own game, in her own match that she's undefeated in. But they didn't go that route. They went the typical, we're going to go 1 for 1 on this one, and then we'll have a match down the line. But I figured it would have been a good point to just go ahead and have Jada Parker win, because right now she's gaining a lot of popularity, and I think she's good for TV. And my course of action that I would have taken with her would be to go ahead and win the women's North American Championship, because for me it would have made more sense for her to win that, or to rather go in that direction to win that. I personally don't see much going on with the North American, with the women's North American Championship, because right now it does seem pretty bland. It seems bland now. I don't want to say that it seemed bland before, because with Kalani Jordan, it seemed like the right person to have that title, because it's like I don't want to say underdog, but I want to say like she seemed like the type of fan favorite, the type of babyface that you pull for every time. She seems like the typical babyface that should have something like that. And then when you put it on Fallon Henley, you would think that that would be something that you would, Fallon Henley as a face probably would have made sense for me to do that, to make that transition from, Kalani Jordan to Fallon Henley. But once she joined the, what is the name? Because it's Great Value Toxic Attraction. What's the name? Is it the, Fatal Influence. I mean, it's cool to have one of them, because I mean, that seems to be the direction that you would want to take with them. But again, like I said, Great Value, Fatal Attraction, Great Value Toxic Attraction. It worked for them because they had the women's titles on lock. It made sense for them because that stable was unique. But with Fatal Influence, and I keep wanting to say Fatal Attraction, but Fatal Influence just doesn't do it for me. Now, again, this is where you go in the comment section and you correct me, or you let me know where I'm wrong, or if I'm or if I'm not seeing something that everybody else is seeing. They're just not doing it for me at all. It would have made more sense for JC Jane, because I mean, I guess she would be the perceived leader of Fatal Influence, but they didn't go that route, and it doesn't seem like Fallon Henley is doing anything with the title. So it would make sense, as far as from what I was looking at, if you take a Jada Parker and you put her in a position where she's feuding for that title, and then she wins it after beating Lola Vice. It's like, I've finished this battle. I'm done with her. We're moving past that. I need to focus on me, and then get some gold. And there we go, because she fell against Roxanne Perez. So now, which way do we go? Mid card for the beginning, because I mean, at some point Jada Parker is going to contend again for the NXT Women's Championship, but I think for this feud, especially if you're going to go this route, it would make sense to go ahead and hit everybody with a misdirect, because it's expected that if you're going to go, one person wins, and then you're still feuding after that match. So that obviously means the other person's going to win the next match, and then you're going to go ahead and have a rubber match and then go from there. But to have her go back to back and then go for a championship, it would make more sense for the misdirect, for her to win that, and then have Lola Vice come out of nowhere, challenge for that title, and then get her get back. And then now you have a fresh feud from a previous feud that you can start up again, and now you're building both of them up with the title, because Lola Vice needs it, because she's not doing it for me. Like, she's good, the presentation is nice, but there's, again, kind of the same thing with Miles and Heights. They're fantastic in the ring, their presentation is nice, but there's something that's just off. And I think the only thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way with Lola Vice was when she went up against Roxanne Perez and she had that promo. I hated that promo, with her crying and talking about her mom and stuff like that. Like, yeah, cool, it's fine, but it didn't do it for me. Like, it was, I don't know. Maybe something's wrong with me, but hey. But yeah, I personally wanted it to go the way that I saw it. I think it would have been a better way to go, because this way was just way too typical. Because it's like, what do you then do with Jada Parker now? Where do you go with her now, other than the same old? I think they missed a point to where they were going to capitalize on something, because it doesn't do anything for either one of them. It doesn't do anything for Lola Vice. Yeah, she won, cool, but what happens now? Maybe I'm proven wrong down the line, but I personally don't see that. I don't see that yet. So we'll see if I'm proven wrong. Now we get to the women's Iron Survivor. it was no surprise to me that Julia was going to win. I know a lot of people, especially my guys. I think, again, Yeager had the weird oddball pick because he picked Sol Ruka. Shout out to the Soul Snatcher. That move itself is just fantastic. And the way that she's gotten to so comfortable with it to where she's able to just almost hit it anywhere, as Scoot would say, chef's kiss. But yeah, it was no surprise that she was going to win. I know a lot of people had picked, sorry, I veered off with the whole Sol Ruka stuff, but yeah, a lot of people picked Stephanie Vacar to win. That would be the smart way to go, but I think they're actually understanding the route that this needs to take. Julia is the person that needs to dethrone Perez for sure. And I think they're going to do it sooner rather than later. Spoiler alert for my picks for New Year's Evil. There we go. I think it just makes sense, you know, because Roxanne Perez is definitely geared to go to the main roster sooner rather than later, whether it be for Netflix when that rolls around, or if it's after Mania season. She's absolutely going there within the next 6 months for sure. There's no question in my mind. And I don't think the money is for Roxanne Perez to be in any woman's main event unless it's a multi-woman main event for or not main event, multi-woman match for Stand and Deliver. That's the only way that I can see that happening, because personally my money would be on having a feud between Julia and Stephanie Vacar for the women's NXT championship match for Stand and Deliver, because I think that they've been teasing that and operating in a very nice square with these two, because their interactions that they have, you know, of course it's based on a bunch of respect between the two, and the way that they have them interact is fantastic. Like, it's not too much, not too little. They just right there, and they tease you just enough to make you want more. So I think that that'll be the feud going into Stand and Deliver. Hopefully they do it off of a respect thing, where that, like, they just know that this is the way that they're going to go, and it's not a blood feud in any way, shape, or form. Oh, excuse me. With the way that things are going right now, I can see Cora and Stephanie having their match at New Year's Evil or at some point around there to kind of keep them busy. And then I can see Julia taking the title off of Roxanne Perez, and then going from there to being interchangeable, whether it be a multi-woman match up until the point. But I think, you know, we're so close to Mania season as well that they have quite a bit to keep them occupied up until Mania, to where they don't need to have Julia and Stephanie interact much to where it would mess up anything. So I'm pretty sure that that's where they would go. Now, when it comes to Zarya, it's the typical trope, the typical strong woman trope. I'm sure she'll play a nice utility part within NXT. I'm not saying that she's bad in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I think she's playing her part well, you know. But when you think about, you know, Julia, Stephanie Vacar, Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, because I mean, she will be going up to the main roster, but as of right now, with the amount of talent that you have that's highlighted for like the top of the women's division, Zarya doesn't really speak volumes. She's kind of just there. Now, will she win the women's NXT championship? Yeah, I can see it happening. I just don't see it happening with any significance that's going to really benefit her or the company itself, because of what they have already slotted on deck. It's kind of the same thing with Sol Ruka. Sol Ruka, she will fit into the upper echelon of the women's division, but as of right now, she'll just kind of just be there. Fantastic. But, you know, again, I think those two, especially with the Ren Sinclair as well, would all be better suited or better slotted into the mid-card portion of the women's division for the North American Championship. I think the North American Championship would be better suited on one of them versus a Fallon Henley presently. But that's my opinion. And when we get to a Ren Sinclair, with the Ren Sinclair, she's necessary. She's necessary, obnoxious to an extent, but it's a positive obnoxious. She's gonna be she gives me vibes of Santino Marella. Ironically enough, with Ariana Grace there, but she gives me Santino vibes with the way, especially with how things went and they operated up to the point of the women's Iron Survivor Challenge. And then within the match, everything just worked out in a way to where it was comedic, it was funny, it just worked out, and it was very entertaining. And I think that she's going to be a surprising fan favorite with the way that it works out for her. If she keeps up this and it keeps going in this direction, now again, comment section, let me know if this has been going on, because I've watched NXT here and there. I haven't been religiously watching it because, again, it ain't my NXT. But again, it still is NXT. So yeah, I think she's going to have a fantastic babyface win on some champion, whether it be through sheer will, where she just like turns it up a notch and just hits the switch and just goes in, or if it's one of those, you know, by the skin of your teeth, luck of the draw, somebody just slotted you in a position and you just happen to be there, right place, right time, bam, you know, kind of how she kind of just landed on I believe it was Cora Jade with the qualifying match, and got slotted into the women's Iron Survivor Challenge match. It's gonna work out if they go that route, but I don't know, but we'll see. But I think that is technically everything, because Shotzi returning, I'm here for it. I was asking myself where she was during this whole time, because we had all these releases and then she was nowhere to be found on TV, and it did surprise me that that's where she decided to turn up at. But I'm not surprised in the overall picture, because I think it makes sense for her to go there and ramp things up and then make her way back to the main roster. Because I think at some point, if she does stay there, and if this isn't like some one-off or feud or whatever, I think if she does stay down there, at some point she could either win the women's NXT championship or the women's North American championship. But we'll have to see how she is in the ring, if she's gotten a little bit better, because I do think Shotzi herself deserves it. You know, she's been in enough NXT history and enough matches that would warrant her to have some type of some recognition in a positive way. Because I think there have been a lot of instances with her where things just either just didn't work out, or it just went the complete left for her. And I think her going back to NXT will benefit her in the long run, to work on the things that, one, she needs to be accountable for, if there is anything, and two, just to make her better overall. So let's hope for the best with that. I know Yeager would absolutely hope for the best for that, but either way, that's been the recap, that's been the review, that's been the aftermath. But again, whether you loved it, hate it, don't forget to rate it, thumbs up, thumbs down, leave all your comments, concerns, questions down below. And again, until you see this handsome face, hear this immaculate voice, I bid you all adieu. And until next time, you beautiful, 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 beautiful mother effers, tag the fucketh. Ow.
Dollars make a way to make a change. Gotta be insane to make those same mistakes again. So I'm switching lane to lane. Pray the curb don't